this technology giving them great confidence that they can beat them and build their authority. Also, USA that before the COVID-19 is putting more and more resources, trying to get more location or trying to get more resources from these Arctic areas. But during the COVID-19 is happened, and during the Joe Biden, their focus on new trade, I think it's the best chance for the Russia to go to this area and take the resources here. And also the climate change is happening, the temperature is raising, and Arctic area is at the most safe place in the whole areas. And it's also for Russia to take these areas as their safety place or shelter for their citizens to maintain their safety. Three things that are coming from our house. For the resources and for the gas or others for other things, that it's Russia should do that. Secondly, that for their safety or other things, they should also do this thing. And for the authority that is the Russia have been used for about 5 or 15 years in the past, it should be Russia to do this. What Russia will do is that first, put more and more research team into this Arctic area and to build buildings or other things in this area, occupy those areas who have good location or those areas who have gas or oil or have resources like this. Also, they were using these military armies at those areas to those areas to show their muscle like this. Seeing that past 50 years after the Cold War, Russia haven't really showed their muscle, or even they show their muscle, they beat it in the Middle East by the USA. I think it's the best chance for them to doing that. First argument here, for their safety, why they're to do that? Seeing back to the Cold War or other things, that the USA can easily putting these military resources or like this in the European countries. But time now, this European country have the democracy or other things. These cities are strongly against what they have used done. So it's very less likely for USA to build these military buildings or like this in the European countries. What they were very lucky to do is to in the Arctic in these Arctic areas to build their military, to build some rockets or like this, or even nuclear weapons to hurting these Russia areas, as Russia is really close to the Arctic areas. So in this interest, for their own safety, it is very important for them to clear these areas rather than these areas being taken by the USA and easily threat the European. Another thing that I mentioned here, why do we think it is now and very important to done here, is also about the climate change. That is the temperature is raising about 60 years ago that the sea level were raising or other things. If you taking this location of this Arctic, as it's the most coldest area in the whole society, and it's very in the society, and it is exactly to say, it is a shelter for all of the citizens for them to do that. They can telling these things to the citizens. What we have done is that you building this area, or even telling to the international society that says we want to build this Arctic area, becoming a shelter for the humanity, for all the people in the society. Why is the profits of the Russia? First, Russia can get profits from that. Let us say the shelter they can collect the money or even cooperate with some social movement to make these things to become possible. The second is that for their citizens, that they say that build shelter to protect the environment of things. Not only that, we are not saying that the Russia do not need to care about climate change in some area or in some domestic areas. It also, I think, is justified for Russia to have Plan B for them to protect them from the further danger. The principle here is that the self-defense is for them to lie down this area to making these changes. And the second principle here is that for the threat that may coming from the America, seeing that they have already built a lot of military things that around the world. I think for their self-defense principle, they should also do that. The second thing that the third is that why is that authority is so important for the Russia to doing that? It's very Russia is always going after their authority to build back their reputation or like this. After Cold War or Libya's news about this Russia has lost a lot of chance to win the competition with America or any other country in the society, as it's far away from them and they do not have that good technology, just like the USA have good airline or other things that is better than the Russia. But Russia, as they have already have that so great icebreaker technology of that. Then to say, we can build a competition in this area to make it to build up this authority have used by taken down by the USA. We can directly say how the icebreaker technology we are so advanced than the South America. What is Russia is like? Their dictatorship or like this. It's really important for the president of the Russia to let their citizens know we are the best country of the society. We can beat them in these things. That is also important for the Russia to maintain their harmony, to maintain their nationality for them, to maintain this government for the Putin or other presidents like this. Another thing is that why authority is that so important is that because in the past authority means that you can using these resources or lots of military resources in the Russia. Russia is a country have millions of military resources, but they have nowhere to use. Even they use that they say a joke that in the Middle East they cannot win this America, and they have already put a lot of resources or investment on the military. That is to say, you should use them. The only way that to maintain these people, maintain the economics in the military, is not to shut down this military or never use them. You should use them to show their muscle or using this area for these areas to let the military to develop them by themselves, rather than just shut down your military on their countries without any use of them. What the comparison here is that the trade-off here is that you are using some resources to build a shelter for all of the students, for all of the people, and giving this chance for them to cooperate with our social movement here. And also, the only the technology they can win for the USA is this icebreaker technology. Using this technology in Arctic is very likely to beat down the authority in America. And also, America is under danger of COVID-19. They were less chance to care about these things. And it is time now for them to doing that based on the Russia opening government.
I to call upon the leader of opposition. Here. Just a quick reminder before the next.
One. Ladies and gentlemen, Arctic region is an island with no resource, not livable with extreme weather conditions. Even if you gain more territory, see, we say the harm far outweighs the good. So let's characterize how does a strong expansionist policy look like? Expansionist policy, for example, building artificial islands in order to claim additional territory and sending warships and troops requiring reallocating massive amount of military resources from Russia to the Arctic region. Russia will need to spend a large amount of money, increase research team, occupy areas, military armies to pursue such kind of expansionist policy in the Arctic region, send troops, warships to maintain the region. This is going to require a lot of labor force to sustain this policy in order to be effective. So before going to the points, we have to characterize what does the Russian want. Three things. First, maintain strong influence and maintain a strong presence in the international arena, including but not limited to economic trade, like export for those natural resources such as natural gas, metals, wood, and military manufacturers, and ensure a stable economy within the country. And B, maintain a strong government image. We say Putin is rather authoritative government, and it needs a strong presence and image to ensure Russian stability. So we have the based on the geographic concerns that that there are no sufficient resources in the Arctic area, and no people, no population, and then with limited usage. We say that for different influence that the Russian for different interests that the Russian trying to gain is not gaining in this expansionist policy to the Arctic Circle. First, political influence. So just like inside the Russia, there's already 77% of the land is unpopulated. So it's no use in gaining political influence for another unpopulated land, since that land are not very competitive among the countries. So how to gain political influence? We are saying that Russians should participate in international matter and should gain political say in some political conference, such as like the United Nations or something like that. So we are not saying we are saying that the Russians should not focus on this like non-competitive land and non-competitive Arctic Circle to like gain her political influence, because like it's no use. So for the economic influence is since that area is unpopulated, there are no income and no trading links there, and instead the Russian, just as the opening government say, they have the ice-breaking technology, but this ice-breaking technology is like requires a huge sum of capital. So if you're having this ice-breaking technology through the Arctic Circle just to maintain them, just to get them, but you cannot have a population, you cannot have trading links, so it's no use. But you are just dumping money into the sea. So for the military, so like the military is like you have to send troops there, and because it's your national territory now, and then the Russian have to send troops there and have some military technology used in that Arctic region. So it is like. So what are the strong powers? What are other strong powers focusing on now? So China is focusing her links with African countries, and US is focusing her link in South America or African. So, and European countries are on their own. So no one is focusing on the Arctic Circle. So maybe the government will come out and say, since no one is focusing, then the Russia should put a flag on it. Really, what is the real effectiveness for Russia to gain the influence and her interest in the world? She needs to have international recognition and also international say in the world in order to help her to gain instant power and also instant influence. She needs to join hot competitions to show her national strength instead of using a huge sum of money to regulate that area without a considerable return that benefits the Russia in the long term or short term. So why is this important in this debate? We are talking about Russian interests. So it's a waste of time and a waste of money to gain the Arctic Circle. And also like, but like under the cost and benefits analysis, we say that there's nothing for the Russian to gain, but risk for losing. So we are saying the Russian interest is to gain, but not to balance, like no gain, no loss, is to gain. But now we are saying there's a loss. There's the loss are outweighs the benefit. So and other side is that I'll take a POI as 6 minutes. So wait. So another side for the Russian to gain her interest is that she has to maintain a positive international image, just as the government say is for national safety of Russia, because like she is facing the U.S. threat, and also. Russia is facing climate change, and then she has to have the area to have a plan B. But we could see that this ice-breaking technology is indeed harming the climate itself, is indeed harming the environmental itself. So if you're preserving the climate change and hindering the climate effect, then why would you use this ice technology to this Arctic Circle in the interest of Russia? So moreover, what does the international community cares about now on other, despite political, economic, military, and societies? They care about the environment. So Russia before didn't do much in the environmental issues. So if she wants a positive international image now, she needs to care more. So if she's having the expansionist policy, as we said, is sending troops and sending some technologies that will harm the environment, if this time she expands to the Arctic Circle, what will the international community think? They will think that the Russia only cares about her national interests but ignore global issues. But before that, I'll take a POI, if there's one.
Yeah, so if your analysis says, but am I audible?
Yeah, please.
If your analysis says that nobody's claiming the Arctic, why not expand and have this capital in order to use it efficiently?
Okay, thank you. So just because there's no population there, and Russia already has 77% of unpopulated area, that she needs to put a huge amount of resource to regulate that area. So it is no use. It's useless. It's not worthy for the Russian to gain another unpopulated land just for like oh my territory is bigger. It's no use. Yes, the area of the territory is bigger, but then what? She cannot get political interest, she cannot get economic interest, she cannot get international recognition, she cannot get everything, she cannot get her interest. So we are focusing on Russian interest. We are not focusing on the territory area of Russia. So gaining that land, we are saying that is no use into the foot of the Russian, and it's no use for Russian to gain interest just to gain that land. And yeah, continue my point on the climate change is eventually the Russian will get like and also for the nationality, the people won't support if the Russian government use the cost from the taxpayer and could not gain a benefit. So for the cost and benefit analysis and for the support from the people, then the Russian government would not stand. So for the above reason, we proudly oppose. Thank you.
Speaker, some clarification of today's debate and also some rebuttals to the government side. First, clarification about the interest of the Arctic area pursuing these circumstances. We believe that in the actual world, many countries are trying to gain their forces in the Arctic level. For example, China and America is also urging to build some stations and provide some scientific researchers in that area to try to gain some efforts in that area. And also, it is actually provides large amount of new resources, for example, mine oil and also CH4, which is uniquely provided by certain area. So we believe there are certain benefits exist in that area. Second, they want to say that because of want to gain that certain political influences and also show some responsibility to the environmental thing. That's why they should give up on this expansion policy in the circumstances. However, we believe two reasons they fell. First, that we believe that they actually didn't provide any alternative that to prove that it can provide better benefits than this kind of expansion policies in the circumstances. Then they are also ignoring the cost that they are ought to spend any other options. And second, they never prove to us that why in the end that it is so important on the other side to show their efforts rather than my partner have told you that it is the only chance for this country to show some military efforts at these points, which is have higher likely, for example, than the showing efforts, for example, in Middle East and in other countries in the current international world. So our house is going to tell you that first, why domestically is not only benefit economy, but also that it's showing great importance of faith and encouragement to the citizens, especially in the current background of COVID-19 situation. Second, we are going to tell you that why it's so important for its international status and their voice in the international world in the future. And also, these are two interests we believe that it is out of Russia's interest. So first argument, why is so important domestically? First, we believe that it is actually a great triggering for the economic development. Why is that? Look at this current status quo is that is facing a problem that its economic growth is currently frozen, and their resources are actually lacking. Lack and have some obstacles in future development. However, Arctic X is actually can provide certain resources, for example, coal, mine, and oil, which provide energy sources for the increased production in this for the industrialization, which can provide no matter not only that the products that it can sell, and also some working opportunities for the citizens. B, we believe that it is actually providing resources for tourism and to stimulate the economy. And it is not only really limited to the Russian people, but also the international people, because we believe that the unique point of Arctic area is that they can never see other similar sceneries in any places, which is unique for these places. And second, why it's so important to the citizens as a whole? So we believe that in the current status quo of COVID-19 situation, that the citizens increasingly need some stimulation and some encouragement provided by the government and state to encourage them to continue fighting this war. So we believe that although that the situation is not that severe currently and vaccines are developing, however, we believe that it is urgent to build a long-term protection protocol to going on for a very long time and to stabilize people's emotion. So in this situation, we believe that it is a good way to comfort citizens that the country is reliable and still have power. For example, the public opinion survey in the past years about supporting the government, we believe that as Russian citizens are having the highest supporting for the government, especially in the situation about expansion and attacking other countries and attacking other regions when the governments do these tactics. So we believe that it is really useful and exclusively important for gaining the support for the government in this Russia situation. So why is so important intangibly that is actually gathering the collective force for the people to fight against COVID-19 and all the obstacles they're facing now, and also have to win the potential competition no matter to the COVID-19 or the other countries' competition. Third, we believe that while the other countries still continue developing, for example, China is also having 100th anniversary for Communist Party to showing that military forces and also space exploration. So we believe it is also important for Russia to show the world that they are actually also stand in such an urgent situation. Third, why is Spain to international status? We believe that it has unique transportation in this circumstance. So first, PY from CEO.
Yeah, why do you think it won't escalate the conflict, which will harm economic benefits that Russia can have? They will be like literally war on their borders. Why will that help them?
We believe why the situation are not going to happen is because uniquely that Arctic region currently have no kind of like authorities or region that dominate that area. So which means that all the countries can have equal competition and equal chances to get in that. And also currently because anyone is currently have the domination control in this space. So we believe that it can have less obstacle to just have its own exploration as other countries are also doing that. And also I'm going to prove to you that why is also important for the building and construction of Arctic Council to eliminate the conflicts of all the countries who want to get in. So continuing my point, the A is provided exclusive benefits in transportation. We believe that because of my partner told you that the melting problem, that it's actually provide a shorter way to go to, for example, New York and other cities, no matter by shipping ways and also airline way internationally. So it is actually for the government of Russia to control exclusive way of transportation. B, we believe that because of the Arctic Council currently are actually lacking some formal regulations and rules to run it, and it is having a blank for the countries to have some voice in this circumstance. So we believe that it's actually a great opportunity for Russia to do it, because the more it earns, the more domination it have more power to further contributing to the council, especially it is the closest country in this circumstance. With unique benefits is A, that is avoid other countries to take these places. All the countries know and will want to fight for these resources. For example, China is a closed Arctic country, and also USA. So we are eliminating others' opportunity to get benefits, which is important for its own. And B is actually gaining attention of other countries. For example, the countries that need to use transportation of this shipping line, and also other countries. And we believe by better building this council that is can gain Russian power and eliminate competition. So in comparison, we believe that we not only provide you benefits domestically, but internationally about the status. Proud to propose.
Start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Panel, 3 things in my speech. Firstly, like how would the people react? Secondly, on like why a strong strong military presence is going to be detrimental, thirdly on the economy, and fourthly on nationalism. Rebuttals will be incorporated. So firstly, like the side opening government actually did not explain the mechanism why showing military presence will actually improve safety and security in the first place. Taking their side at the best, they successfully expanded into the Arctic region. We say the safety and security on their side of the house is actually going to be far worse. Two reasons. Firstly, for the strong powers, international strong powers such as the United States and China, they will actually see Russia showing the muscles as an extra move as a threat. So they will actually be threatened and like feel that they are actually feel like Russia is trying to like initiate war because of the military presence that they are showing in the Arctic region, and it's going to threaten them. So like it is actually trying to trigger war, and it's very likely to trigger war. So B, for the neighboring countries, especially those who share border, for example, Ukraine, Belarus, and Latvia, we say that the threat is actually going to be much greater because these countries have shared border with their own country, with Russia, and they have no idea like how long they are going to when they are going to have military aggression onto them. So like they would have no idea when they are going to use the military, so like they are going to react. So how would they react, by the way? So firstly, like they would actually take actions. So in terms of military, they would either try to develop in the Arctic regions to showcase the military presence of their own country, or that will actually eventually create tension. Further elaboration, there'll be further elaboration in my later part of my speech. And secondly, there may be like economic sanctions or economic laws that's going to ban Russia or try to reduce trade with Russia, and C, they're going to have more political tension in between Russia and on these countries. So that's firstly on military tension, right? So opening government says that Russia has a strong military, so they would eventually have to use it. We have no idea why they should use it in the first place. And secondly, even if they're going to use it, the harm is actually going to be far worse. So what would these strong expansionary policies with the use of strong military actually change to the international relationship is that two problems. A, if they are trying to use military, it is going to threaten the countries around them, such as Denmark, Norway, Canada, around the Arctic region. And we say these countries are also strong developed countries with decent amount of military power as well. So these countries will want to show that citizens and their countries are well protected by their own country. And taking the side of the best, they claim that in the Arctic region have some natural resources, right? Even if that is true, we say these countries will actually cause if Russia actually see their natural resources in these countries, they're going to other countries for example Denmark, Norway, Canada are going to go into these going to Russia to going into the Arctic region and further develop these natural resources. So it's going to create much more tension in the Arctic region as well. So it's going to create an army race, which is going to be detrimental because you're actually heating up the military tension, which if there's a small spark in the society, the trigger is going to be huge, which will trigger a lot of international conflicts, trigger a lot of cross-border conflicts in which there may be human injuries or human deaths. So that's actually very detrimental. And secondly, on the economy, right, directly clashing with open government, we say they say there are a lot of oil and resources. Remind me at 6 minutes. So we say that is even worse because they showcase Russia is aggressive and hungry to capture natural resources. And secondly, they are harming the environment. So when they are actually being that aggressive in the economy, how will the people react? Is if in the case if they are not trying to showcase military presence, they are likely to cause use other means, for example, political means or economical means to actually stop Russia from trying to be too aggressive, because their safety will be threatened. And how they going to how it's going to be harming Russia's economy, right? So it's going to harm Russia's economy because of two reasons. Firstly, the exports are going to be reduced much more because these countries are going to use economic trades as a means to sanction Russia. Like even if the effort is going to be minimal, we think that it's going to be like an impact on Russia if these smaller countries actually collectively gather together and actually change this and actually challenge Russia. And secondly, like what is going to happen is like locally, there will be a lot of like resources to be reallocated and transferred from the local regions, from local Russia to the Arctic region, so that there will be like much less resources for the local local Russians. And that is going to be harmful to the local economy. I'll take a POI before I move on.
Okay, assuming that Russia has invaded like the most countries in the Middle East and they have like escalated many military tensions, why do you think this is going to be the tipping point and Russia's economy is going to be destroyed?
Well, two things. Firstly, like we say, like these kind of like economic, like this kind of tension is going to be harmful because it's actually trying to like increase like conflict in general, right? So like how would the economy be better off on our side of the world is that like if there are actually like much with the less strong expansionist policies, what will happen in today's world is that like they are going to stay in the status quo and actually develop the Russian economy like slowly and gradually. We think this is better because the conflict coming from the military side is actually going to be much less. And secondly, on the nationalism part, may I know how much? Yeah. Okay. Evelyn, hi. Thirdly, on nationalism. So we say like for Russia is actually having an economic downfall, just like many countries, just like because of COVID and global economic crisis. We're in an internet era, so like how Russia react negatively, and this is a unique extension coming from me. Why? Because like when Russia is being so aggressive, they're further using resources for long-term projects. They have no clue how they're going to be profitable in the Arctic region if they expand on the Arctic region. So like what will happen is like when people see this kind of like acts, reallocation of resources, they would actually have a lot of discourse, have a lot of like question to why Russia actually changed this kind of like situation and like react in this way. So like they are going to create like more disagreement within towards the government, more disputes, and weaker government reputation eventually will happen, right? So like on the issue of climate change, right? So you're actually harming the environment with the new technologies as well, because like what is going to happen is that like when you harm the environment, it's going to like cause a much greater impact to the economy. Yeah, because of these reasons, very proud to oppose. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't time myself.
Hi, checking if I'm audible first.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. So give me 1 second. I'll start. Perfect. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, the reason why Russia is a global superpower now is for 3 reasons. First of all, because of strong military presence. Second of all, because it has less restraints in behaving, so caring less about things such as the environment. And 3, because of the aggressive behavior that it's creating when it cares about something. Those 3 characteristics are a key into why expanding aggressively is now important. The reason why there is an incentive for this area, which is something that we want to clear up, is because it has a huge interest for the world geopolitically and economically due to the abundance of resources. And now it's the tipping point to act because ice are melting, which means those resources are now uniquely available. Okay, what I'm going to do in my constructive case is I'm going to tell you how this move is going to increase the international power of Russia, both geopolitically and economically, but also as a negotiation too, because it's going to deter countries from accessing those areas. But before that, some extraneous rebuttal. First of all, we have cleared out the idea about like interest of resources for the area. We think that opening opposition's claim that this area has no interest is faulty. It has minerals, it has energy, and states need to tend to care about this because it leads to economic profit. But we tell you that even if we buy to the idea that no one cares about it, even better for us, let's have Russia have extra territory, which here it is important that extra territory, especially in the sea, matters because it gives you the opportunity to travel through specific waters that you didn't have access before, which means that in the end, we also gain things. Second point of rebuttal about the idea that no one has interest in that, which is kind of similar to the previous one. What I want to point out here is that the tensions that exist in opening a position. First, as I said, they tell you that no one cares about the area, but then they tell you that somehow war is going to happen, so Russia doesn't have this threat. So they kind of need to decide if like countries need to care about whether they want to access this part of not. If we buy to the first one, where they say that area is not going to have any type of resources, then all the argumentation concerning war means that no one else is going to gain resources, so no tensions. Cool. If we buy into the second one, which is that like countries are going to care and tensions will exist, we do see unique incentives for Russia to go there. So in either way, you have to buy kind of one of those. But let's talk about the international image, which we think is the most important thing here. We think that the argumentation that tensions are going to increase has a very minimal impact because the international globe right now is quite against Russia already. Why? Because they have expansionist policies like in areas such as like Africa or South or like Asia, which the rest of the world doesn't really like, because they are going against some environmental protocols which the rest of the globe doesn't really like. And generally, like they have open conflicts, like the idea like of them invading Crimea, which means the way that the international community is going to react to them is not going to change that much, because they are already putting sanctions, they are already going against them. But even if they tell us that the conflict there is going to be unique and so devastating, because now we have the first mover advantage if we move aggressively, we're still going to get more if we're the first ones there taking advantage of the area than going a bit late and creating higher tensions. But let's go into constructive. Why do we care about this area, about geopolitics? Because an interest of Russia in generally is about claiming more water land. Why? Because this is the reason why it took advantage of Crimea, because it has limited access to like seaways because of its like geographical position. But why is it so important for Russia? Because when you have this type of sea access, you have the ability to travel easier, to trade easier, and increase your geopolitical advantage. And they can't do that otherwise. They can't expand to the south because many countries already have presence there. And even if somehow they were completely successful into like taking advantage of like areas within Africa into having those like water areas in the south, they're going to have higher competition because many more countries have interest there. Second of all, there are areas that are already exploited to a huge percentage, which means that when you have like the Arctic area, which has like unique minerals that are now coming up, you get this first mover advantage that you're the first one going in, you're the first one exploiting this area, which means that you're gaining more benefits. So in the end, geopolitically, this area is of huge importance. And if it only can be taken advantage if Russia goes there aggressively. The second thing why that increased like the economic power as well is because it offers this access to mineral resources. And look here, opening government did tell us that we somehow care about this, but they never explained why. The reason why is because the Russian economy is highly based on exporting energy. Currently, it is the third larger energy exporter. However, this power is starting to diminish because their access to those types of resources is diminishing because they're getting less. The only way in order to remain in the game is to have unique advantage into accessing those types of resources, which we can get through the Arctic area. By doing that, you get a competitive advantage over the abundance of like minerals and oil that you're going to have, which means that you keep a strong position into this industry. And the reason why this is important is because this area is estimated to be very rich. Like the economic impact that it can bring is around like trillions of dollars. Do I have a question from opening opposition before I continue?
Yes. Okay, so my POI is that Russian can only get the resources in the Arctic area. So this is really harmful to the environment. How could you directly engage this point? Thank you.
Already, like Russia already doesn't care about the environment. And since we're talking about Russia's interest, we don't care about the environment either, sorry. So why now is an urgent point to do that? Because the rhetoric that Russia has at the moment that makes it a threat to the world is around the idea that it has this aggressive expansionist policy. And by continuing this ideology, especially into the Arctic, you create a deterrence for other countries to exploit areas that are like directly linked to this place. Why this is important? Because it increases like the idea that you have this sustainable and specific like cohesion within the state, that you're trying to take advantage of the area and of their areas around you, because it is of huge importance to like the Putin rhetoric that exists right now, that area remains this nationalistic, untouched area that hasn't any form of like expansions from other countries. So what do we get in the end? We get stronger geopolitical presence, we get economic benefits, and we get a continuation to this aggressive rhetoric that Russia has, that is the one that is making it a threat to this point. And for all those reasons, the international presence of Russia remains stable, and for all those reasons, we urge you to vote with CG. Thank you.
I thank the member.
Starting in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so it's very interesting that for government, conflict is important and something that Russia wants, but they don't factor the reaction of other countries who feel threatened into it, the amount of money and resources that it will take for Russia, for Russia to constantly fight that battle. If we as opposing opposition can make out why there will be escalated conflict and why there's going to be a huge reaction and what its exact harms are, we think that there are advantages of like, you know, Russia's military being like being amazing at extra, or it having first mover advantage. Advantage is stand null, because we think that like they are also confused about the comparative. It's not like Russia backing out of Arctic Ocean at all. This is about aggressive expansions policies. Currently Russia still being careful, following international treaties, skirting them a bit but not entirely. What this means, this motion requires is consistent aggressive action that signals it to everyone, and the use of hard power too, and not only soft power like other countries, which make the countries feel more threatened, which is why this kind of conflict is going to be unique, right? So they might not get as much a big piece of the pie if they go by the law on our side of the house, but we think that it will, we think that when there's conflict, your trade ships get bombed, there are less investors willing to invest into it. The pace of the natural resources that you can get is going to be lesser. For all of those reasons, we believe that their international presence will be threatened by. Okay, so what are the interests of Russia, right? We do think that Russia wants to solidify its power, but there is a reason why Russia won't go to an all-out war against USA or extra. There's a reason. You have to be strategic about it, because you have to weigh the benefits with the harms. And here, here our main point about why the conflict would escalate. Number one, because number one, USA and NATO also have their military and commercial aircrafts and ships in the Arctic Ocean. Generally, all countries want a pie of it because of how resource rich it is. Then strongly expanding your own military arsenal means that you are going to be harassing them, you're going to be threatening them, and there is going to be small skirmishes. But this is going to be even worse than South China Sea conflict, if we can take a parallel, because these countries, USA, because the countries like USA, Canada at extra, they are not weak countries. They are like Russia does not already have a good impression. Unlike China, which has its own like regional treaties at extra, which it uses to exert its influence, these actors like USA or Canada at extra are going to feel more threatened because of Russia's colonial past, where unlike China, which would only like use its economy, use its economy, and had a reputation of like being outside of politics, etc. Everyone is more threatened by Russia. Everyone is going to be more aggressive, and that means that even on an international front, your USA, Canada's extra aggressive reaction will be more legitimized because of just the international impression and impression of Russia, right? We think that also because of the Russia and China partnership, any threat by any such action by Russia is going to be perceived as worse of a threat because it is going to be seen as China exerting its own influence too, and in an area comparatively nearer to USA and Canada rather than the South China Sea or other countries, right? It's good there. The aggression and these insecurities are going to be projected there, which means that the countries are going to react more too, right? Before we you don't, unlike what OG said, you don't just eliminate the opportunity of other countries by trying to exert influence over it. They react back. Why is that? Why is that bad? We think that like already in status quo, you have examples of like Canada issuing statements like issuing harsh statements about Russia's somewhat expansionist policies. You have things like and generally the other Arctic countries, no country likes them. So what is the conflict might look like? Proxy wars, short skirmishes, etc. What bad effect will it have, right? We think that it will number one, it will harm the soft power that Russia already has, because now Russia's actions will be seen as unjust, and its influence in other countries, such as it trying to take part in the Afghanistan, the vacuum left by USA in Afghanistan, etc. That it becomes harder to legitimize that because of how Russia is generally seen as more aggressive, more aggressive because of how their influence lessens because of trade sanctions, etc. Before I move on, is there any POI by opening?
POI. USA is always aggressive on the Middle East, or even more aggressive than in Arctic area, and always have a conflict with Russia. Why do Russia is worse than America and cannot get any profits from this procedure?
We think because of the nature of the conflict that will happen over here. This isn't a proxy war that Russia and USA are engaging in. This is happening right in Russia's borders, which means it will hinder any economic benefit, any trade routes that they try to build through that. We think that Russia should try to exert an influence. This is a bad way to go by it. There are better strategies using China as a front, using South China Sea and other things to take out to increase their influence against over USA textile, right? We think that the risk in doing this will be high. Other than we think that like, because you have to use your resources and you have to use your resources and diplomacy and security attacks in order to make the Arctic countries like you do, which means that that's just like a lot of that means that like a lot more money at extra going there and going there that could be used as. But other than that, we think that regarding like natural resources at extra, Russia's literally like ranked 8th in the world for having like total oil reserves. So we don't think that it needs all of them in order to maintain its economically sustain itself. We think that like they're just having the machinery that it would take to go there. You are, like it would mean also you have less to invest in technology. You have less to make sure that you stand taller than other countries, and because a lot of our money at extra is going to a venture that is just going to increase conflict, which means more money going into military at extra, which is why we believe that it will harm other expansionist interests of Russia too. For all this, we're very proud to propose.
I thank the member of opposition for this fine speech, and to conclude the government side of the debate, I'm happy to call upon the government.
Two, one, go. Panel note that City is the only team that actually brings the right context of this debate, but is to say, we explain you why the Arctic is such of matter of great significance, why Russia has a huge incentive to act now, and this is why we probably win in this debate. I'm going to do two things in my speech. One, I'm going to explain why our extension is legitimate, but is to say why, on the first basis, we fill in the importance of the Arctic, which actually raises the whole urgency of the case. But as to say, we give you the context, and I'm going to later weigh with OG why we're actually flashing the inherent benefits that exist inside probe. Second of all, we're giving you structural reasons why the conflict will not be as bad as opposition side is characterizing throughout this debate. Before we do that, let's see what happened in the opening half. First of all, OG comes up and talks about safety, right? That, like, they use this self-defense mechanism about you establishing your sovereignty and security. It is entirely unclear what is the missing link when it comes to the urgency that this move has, right? So like I don't see it, like, and I don't think OG is actually proving that why like there is a huge urgency when it comes to the Arctic specific region of the area, but this Russia is threatened right now to the USA or the Canada in order to actually establish the safety. But on a second basis, I don't see like the missing link is why this is the best way in order to establish this kind of safety and not having your nuclear power program, investing on that, or like maybe what CO is saying, like probably investing more money into your military force. I think there are other alternatives, and I don't think their urgency and their weighing is enough to explain why this is the only way to actually establish safety when it comes to military force. Second of all, they say this thing about like power message and flexing around why you have such a big military force. I think numbers speak for themselves, and I think already exhibitions are happening throughout like this Siberia and the Kazakhstan area when it comes to Russia actually establishing this kind of area. But even if you don't buy that analysis, see what is happening in the Middle East with Turkey and Russia and Syria. I think this is fair enough to say that, okay, Putin has a lot of power, right? So like the third thing OG says is about like this kind of establishment of citizens and actually establishing sovereignty and nationalism, right? So like for OG's case to be entirely through that, you need to follow the following calculus. I'm a Russian citizen, and I've been oppressed throughout the centuries about taking away rights. Probably, if I'm LGBTQ, I shouldn't be in Russia. I'm threatened to actually go to specific places or walk around. I don't have the democratic rights to vote for a new president. But then, and my calculus is, fuck off, I'm going to be disobedient when it comes to the country. But the calculus changes when they actually expand on Arctic and say, oh shit, Russia now has the Arctic, so I should behave better. I think this is highly unrealistic from OG's side. We agree with opening opposition on that matter. This is why I think OG's claims are not entirely realistic and linked to the motion. Like the last thing they say, and I think they do a solid case on that, is explain why tourism is something good and you're going to control this kind of narrative and control this kind of area. I think Maria-Elena then does a really fine job taking away these kind of benefits, mechanizing this stuff and explaining why minerals and oil rich is something financially improving and boosting your economy. This is why it is oil dependent as an economy, and this is why you should act now, right? Then OO comes up and has this analysis about the international community and prioritizing what the international community wants. First of all, I'm not entirely certain this is what the international community wants, seeing like USA taken away from Paris Agreement and like probably seeing the UN not doing as much as they could do for the environment. But second of all, it is entirely unclear why it is the interest of Russia to protect the environment. And even if that was the interest that is contingent on the analysis OG and OO has to provide that analysis, I'm not entirely saying that this is the best way to protect the environment, assuming that the climate change is liable for the melting of the icing, not Russia. But like, let's take that a step further, right? CO claims that Canada and USA are already invading the Arctic region. If they are, or if these countries are already invading this kind of region, why Russia would be liable for the like protection of the environment if other countries are doing that? And this gives me the best connection to the following. We say the following: if already countries are invading Arctic regions, that is to say USA and Canada and Denmark, then Russia is ultimately legitimate in order to do that, exactly because they have the best position when it comes to them reaching out. They have better time sensitive, like when it comes to expanding on military force. They have better legislative power, exactly because of their geographical position. This is crucial analysis, and note that, because this really mitigates the force and the soft power that other countries have in order to oppose Russia's expansion in that specific territory. So if USA and Denmark and Canada is actually expanding, as CEO says, then they don't have the soft power to oppose the legitimacy of Russia exposing and Russia expanding, exactly because they are more far away from the Arctic region. And this is something of uncapitalized territory. This is something why Russia needs to act now. And then CEO comes up and says, guys, look, I think we're gonna harm our soft power because we're in such a good position in status quo. Everybody listens to Russia, and now we're gonna be the bad guys. First of all, this is highly untrue, exactly because I have already told you, Russia has been getting away with doing shit all the time, taking away Crimea from Ukraine, going to Syria and taking down all the territory groups. I think this is far from like what the presidents of Russia are getting away. So I don't think like your soft power is something that you have. But even if you buy that analysis, we're willing to trade off our soft power of putting, like, being able to be the good guy in the status quo and the perception in order to gain this massive economic boost that we're going to get. Now, moving on to what Marielena told you, I'm gonna take a POI now. Oh.
I told you that Russia's neighboring countries' reaction are going to create armament race, implement economic sanctions, which intensifies tension. And
okay. I get the point. Sanctions are not likely to happen because if you sanction Russia for expanding to Arctic region, then you need to sanction all the other countries that are doing that. I don't see who has this power to do that, who is going to legislate be in comparison to the other countries. Three things that are hugely important. First of all, we're telling you we're in this pursuit. So at the end of the day, even if we fail on efficiency, we provide you analysis why this is a deterrent mechanism for other countries to actually invade and take this kind of capital. Second of all, we're telling you this is a unique of exploitation when it comes to our economy. Why is that? Because if we lose this kind of capital, this is not only a loss of huge opportunity, as OO says, it is compared to anything else, and they say nobody is actually claiming that. But we're also losing our huge competitive advantage of actually prioritizing this kind of oil revenue, because other countries are going to have access to huge amounts of revenue. This is why we're losing if we don't actually take that advantage. Third of all, this is an irreversible harm, because if USA and Denmark actually capitalize on that, then this territory is unprecedented. This is when military power comes in, and this is why it's going to be a huge risk for us not to act now, exactly because of the time sensitivity Margela is telling you. For all of the above reasons, please drop this debate from CT. Thank you.
Panel, we believe the problem with the debate is CG mischaracterizing our case quite a lot, but also not taking us at our best. Understand, we already proved to you what war is going to look like. It's not going to be only militarily, but also the basis of how trade and sanctions. The reason why OO loses out in the debate is because they did not provide you the mechanization of what trade wars or sanctions are going to look like, which is what we did in our case. Understand that even so we are going to talk about trade wars or sanctions, it's not going to look like that a certain international body is going to decide what sanctions are going to be limited. Countries are going to be decided because of the way they're pressurized or the kind of threat they feel. Because understand that even Russia knows that the kind of minerals that you're getting in the Arctic is something that you don't actually need, which is something that Russia already has. This is actually being used as a military base where ballistic missiles are being tested, etc., which is actually being used to harbor this kind of military operation. The first is the technological innovation in terms of climate change, etc., space and prevention is that is a facade on Russia. Something that the international community is right now saying. Even so, you're saying that even if Russia went on to invade Ukraine, is something that they did not understand the economic sanctions that were on Russia, where they were affected to a very large extent. Russia is in economic crisis right now, which minerals are not going to save them for. Even if you say that the export is going to be pretty amazing and great, we believe the either the countries that you currently trade with, for example, US or other people, US or other countries that you're going to trade with, are now going to go towards soft power, which means that you're likely to have trade wars, which means that US is going to increase the prices because US is going to increase prices on what kind of products that you import now, which also means that the inflation is going to somehow increase in your country, which also means that demand of those prices, those products are going to decrease, which also means that you are going to be economically really bad in all of the situation. But more so on that. But understand that coming out of CG, they have a very weird case. For example, A, they tell us how aggressive behavior is going to be essential for you. 2, they tell us how how their territory is going to secure power. 3, they tell us that international community doesn't like Russia, and that is why they will never change. 4, they tell us the geopolitical advantage for sure. First, understand that first mover advantage, but if the comparative is going by international treaty, don't get much as big a piece of the pie when there is conflict. Your ships get bombed, less investors, war is actually military training. Right now, you have an organized form of technological exploration into the military zones, but if it has going to escalate it towards, which is something that Adwa told in her speech, which is likely because US is going to feel threatened because you literally have military into that place in the Arctic, which is closer to the US borders, which also means that it is going to be legitimate for US to actually come in with their military because they're going to feel threatened on the terms of their borders, and that is something that the international community is not going to question because something that has been this is something that has been used by Russia. Understand that international presence still is going to remain. It isn't strategically using military way to make it. So Russia isn't using strategic geopolitical influence to maintain its power. Actually using military aggression, which is something that we have an inherent problem with. You say that you can protect yourself through the military, but you actually don't use it because it can prolong the conflict, which also has economic harms. Even coming on the idea, because that doesn't make sense if you are getting a first mover advantage, because or if you don't care about the international community. Actually you do, because after Ukraine you actually had much more economic sanctions, and that devastated the country, because of which you are actually complying with the UN right now. Otherwise Russia has no incentive to comply with the UN in terms of its international adhere to the guidelines of the international community, because when it's moving into the Arctic region, it needs that legitimacy to limit the kind of sanction that is already big on US, but that will prove counterproductive because of the reasons that your military expansion is something that is going to actually hinder your process of your process. But understand that Russia already has its own problems with climate change, which is also affecting the country on a very greater level. Having this kind of thing closer to your border is something that's going to inherently hurt you as well. But also understand that Russia's interests are not diplomatically strategic. They're military aggressive, but the world politics have changed over to soft diplomacy, which is why also US is more likely to go towards a trade war in terms of what they did in Ukraine, and there's going to be an economic war, which is going to cause inflation in Russia, something that we mechanize. Even so, you're telling that we told you that the minerals you already are trying to look for in Arctic, something that you already have in your country. So this facade is something that's only for the military part. Understand that, that they can't afford continuation of economic sanctions after Ukraine is something that's inherently what we're trying to prove. Economic sanctions even need national credibility. People are not going to buy in that. Understand that mischaracterized. We did not say that US and Canada are invading the Arctic. We say that Canada and US are already exploring the Arctic according to international law. So Russia is sort of also complying with the international law right on that, but also no one is going out of it, but also that Russia will be violating that when it already knows all of this and aggravating US and is also going to aggravate US and Canada. Moving on to OG. We believe OG has this very OG bring us the idea of how there's going to be military resources and have no use, and they're going to be invested and there's going to be guaranteed greater safety. Understand that resources can be extracted according to international treaties, but when there's more conflict there due to Canada and US feeling threatened, just like South China Sea, it is going to threaten your border. US already pretty much hates China and Russia alliance and already has the Biden administration enforcing numerous number of policies. In terms of economic preservation, sanctions also isn't sanctions from the Western countries damaging you significantly as it hints at possible inflation in your country, which is something that we brought to the debate, and US is going to feel more disrupted. Before I move on, is there a POI from opening? Closing.
From opening. Why do you think that building so-called friendship relationship with other countries can avoid other countries' growth and threats against Russia, as you mentioned, and how Russia, that with no extra forces gains, can protect itself in these circumstances?
Understand that Russia is only going to need protective forces if it actually aggravates other countries. Otherwise, Russia should actually focus on economic benefits by soft power diplomacy, which it actually can do by actually enforcing soft powers and kind of decreasing the number of reasons that sanctions have already been imposed on them because of their expansionist policies in the past. Because it can't actually take any more sanctions because of its expansionist policy, something that the military, something that they're not going to deal with. I think they can still cope up with diplomatic trade wars or trade sanctions, or even have that kind of relation with other countries. But even if you secure considerable export, even if you depend on external trade resources, sanction trade wars will leave people starving because it will lead to inflation, that we told. But also understand that you still need, if you still don't have the money for tourism, etc. They're literally using the Arctic to test weapons, which we told you that sanctions means that this sanctions still mean that the ability of your country is going to be lesser because US and Canada have a lot of influence, and so the sanctions will hurt more and less money eventually that they can use to exert political influence. And countries like India have now have to choose between US and Russia. More currently, they can use vague statements to maintain a middle person, but now they will have more countries will choose not to align with Russia because of its international condemnation. Because of all of those reasons, vote for.